We've reached the end of the season here in Minnesota. On September 30th, I took what is likely going to be one of my last rides. The weather's going to get cold here next week. Tomorrow might be the last nice day, but I thought I'd record out here since it's beautiful. It's a nice fall day, and I went out today and the board performed okay. I apologize for not ever really releasing a complete review of the Lift Series 4 Pro board. I ran into some trouble. So let me start by saying this. I really wanted to make a show that reviewed this board and was able to say, this is the first real board. The first real, not early adopter board, but the first real production board that anyone could buy and feel great about and ride and not have to solve issues. For most of the season, that was absolutely the case with this board. I started racing in July and I started going to different races. I got good at it. I built my own course and I started getting really competitive with this board, and I was going faster than I've ever gone for longer periods of time. And what started happening was I started maxing out around 34 miles per hour on the straightaways at these races. And that is fast. Like, I am, for the most part, faster than everyone else. So I'm pushing the board a lot harder than a lot of people. Well, I started getting overheat warnings coming from the board. The plug warning, PLUG. Now, it's not the greatest name for that because it makes people think that their coolant line is plugged, but that's not what it means. The plug warning means that the 3 wires that go into the speed controller, they're getting too hot. And usually you can fix that by getting out the oil and cleaning them up. It means that there's some resistance there and it's creating heat. I'm in fresh water, so I'm not really worried about corrosion, but I do grease the plugs up and I do scrub them pretty regularly. I would say about every 3rd or 4th ride, like once a week at least, I oil them up and everything. So I was polishing those things up like crazy. I hadn't yet submitted a report to Lift because I really know that if you do that, they'll start sending you parts and it might not be the problem. So I wanted to continue to do investigations, figure it out so I could report to them. I think this is what's going on. Here's the part that I need. And so I kept riding it and like trying to figure out what was going on. And I started, I was checking it out with a thermal camera to figure out what was going on. It's definitely those plugs are getting hot and I couldn't figure out what the heck it was. One of the times when I was polishing the end points there and I was like really getting in there with like a Q-tip to like really make sure that all the sockets were clean. Finally, I looked at all my plugs and I'm like, I don't know when this happened. Maybe it was always like this and I never noticed it, but one of the green plug was missing like a washer or like this little black piece. It looks solid on the other ones. And I don't know if it was shipped like that or if it had come off at some point, but I'd never noticed it. And I was suddenly looking at it and I was like, oh, wait a second. And probably the reason I never noticed it before is that I clean them each independently. So I'll like pull out the red and I'll get out a wire brush and I'll clean it up really, really well and oil it up and then I'll stick it back in. Then I'll do the yellow. And so I was never looking at them all together to notice one of these kids don't look like the other ones. So I was really hoping to solve this problem and be able to report to everyone, yep, I had one issue, Lift solved it, and you can buy this board and know for sure it's a great board. But dang it, it's my 3rd board. And all 3 boards had 3 different, 3 issues. So I can't say we're out of the early adopter phase yet. And like, look, I believe in Lift as a company still. I still think if you're going to invest in a board, probably the best investment you could make is the fiberglass or the carbon fiber board, depending on your ability to buy and your requirements for performance that you need out of a board. If you come from any form of fast moving water sport and you like carving, get the Pro, the smallest board they make, get the tallest mast, start with like a medium wing, like maybe a 150, and expect to want to upgrade that to a 100 if you want serious carving performance. If you are on the ocean and you could actually get into a place where you can catch waves and ride for free, unpowered, then maybe a folding prop. Another thing that I discovered this year is I did like the LCS system. I actually really liked it a lot. It does reduce the friction of the ride. And so I upgraded my other boards. I spent, $150 on it's the little space between the motor and the prop, whatever that's called, fairing. I don't know. You can replace that and you can take the shroud off, because I realized, like, no one's ever cut their foot here or even touched that thing. So I figured it was time where I could safely remove those. Okay, I found something very interesting with the standard prop. If you remove that prop guard, that shroud, the boards don't perform at all, hardly at all. They have like half as much power and torque. And like when I was carving, I was like, whoa, it's terrible. It's got no power. Thought the first time it happened, I thought, oh no, something's wrong with this motor or the speed controller. Nope, but then some of my heavier friends got on there and they couldn't even get out of the water. We put the shroud back on, no problem, power returned. So there's something about the shape of the original prop and that shroud must compress the water or something to give it more power, because it is gone when you take it off. Not true for the LCS system, the Lift Connect system. I put the shroud on my board and it sucked. It was terrible. And so there's something different about that prop. I can tell that it's slightly different design. I didn't 3D scan it and have AI run a comparison on the shape or anything, but it's something. I'm telling you, all three boards, I tried the standard prop on them with no shroud. They had no power. So don't invest in that prop nose thing, the tail nose or whatever that thing's called. Don't invest in it. I don't know how Lift is like, yeah, no, this is a great idea. I think they made it for like other things like the folding prop and other stuff, but they advertise it as though you can get rid of your shroud and use this standard prop and it'll be great. It's not great. It's terrible. It doesn't work, actually. So don't do that. And I know that everyone is like going, that doesn't make any sense. I agree, it doesn't, but I can't deny the fact that I tried it on 3 different boards and I got the same result. Crap. And as soon as I put those back on, performance came back. So I'm telling you, that's the denominator here. Let's Occam's razor this thing. That's got to be the answer, is that you lose that shroud and you lose power. Let's see, how do I feel about Lift? I mean, same. They make a good product. They do support their customers. Whenever I read people saying, oh, I had this problem and Lift said that's my fault and they won't fix it, I'm super suspect, in the sense that they are so fast to send me parts, whether that's the right part or the wrong part. They are so fast to try to resolve it. They're like, hey, most likely solution says put this on, tell us if that fixes it. If not, we'll send you more stuff. I don't love that, in the sense that, like, that doesn't help them make a stronger eFoil company, right? That I get that maybe they're thinking like, look, the best thing for us to do to show our customers we care about them is just let's just try to solve it as fast as possible. That as a business decision, that's not a bad one. Like, probably most of the time they say, oh, your motor's loud, send you a new motor. Well, it didn't turn out, like in my case, it wasn't the motor. It was the speed box. That as soon as I put this new speed box, I wrote them again. I said, didn't solve it. They go, okay, well, the last thing it could possibly be is the speed controller. Here you go. Pop that in, boom. It was half as loud. Not as quiet as this guy. This guy's super quiet, but my Lift 3 started performing the way the Lift 3 was identified. So now I have 2 tall motor masts. One I didn't pay for, it just came for warranty. And like, I don't know what that cost them, but I feel like, I'm sure that to send it back to them, that's just another expense for them too. Like, it would probably, at the end of the day, if we were to like ship it back to them on their dime, they probably are looking at going, it's not worth it, So I don't know. So I don't know. I guess if I had to choose for them to be super careful and suspect of every customer that wrote in with a problem, or let's assume the customer's telling us the truth and let's try to solve it so we keep them as a customer, that is a better business decision. And I applaud them for, if they have to choose one or the other. And I asked them, I'm like, why'd you have to send me a whole new mast? And why'd you have to send me, if it was just the motor, for instance, Why did you send me a whole new mast, a new bag, a new set of tools, new grease kit, new sticker that I'm never going to use? Like, why'd you send me all this new stuff? And they said it's just how they come, and you would need special tools to just take the motor off and put it back onto your old mast. They said it's just cheaper for us to do it that way. And I said, okay, that makes sense. You know, like they manufacture them in Puerto Rico, and I'm sure that it's just cheaper to like go into the warehouse, get a brand new kit as they're all built and send it. And I bet it's faster too, so we have happier customers. I do not believe if you look online and you see people say, it was still under warranty, the battery went bad, and they said that was my fault. I'm super suspect of it. I don't believe it. I do not think that that's true. And there's so much, I'm not sure why or how this happened, but like already the world of eFoiling is super divisive. Like there's so many people who write on like even just my wall or, you know, my YouTube channel, and they say like, oh, you know, this is every time you show your board, internals of your board off, it makes me happy I bought a flight because there's less wires in my flight. I'm like, why does that matter? I don't care how many wires are in here. Like that is, I only have to detach 2 every time I use the board, the controller and then the battery line, and it works really well. So who cares? Like these things do not matter. Then I asked them like, well, tell me more about it. What are the advantages of owning a flight board? Because I'm actually curious. I finally got to fly one, and I don't have enough experience on the boards, and it wasn't rigged right for me. Like I've yet to have someone let me get onto one of their Pro boards that would be equivalent to my board, and Pro wings, which would be equivalent to my preferred riding stance. I'm getting on these boards and like, I can't give them a fair comparison because that's not how I ride. If I were to be a flight rider and you were to put me on a fiberglass giant, you know, cruise board or a sport board, I would be like, oh, these things are slow and lame. So really, I need flight to give me the opportunity to ride a board that would be the equivalent of my board for me to give it a fair comparison, a fair shake. And I just haven't, even though I go to races all over the place, I've never met someone who's let me ride their board that has the smallest, lightest, fastest ride. So I cannot make a fair comparison here, but I would love to. I would absolutely love to. So the lift people are often coming into conversations online, and I think I haven't met anyone that's really been able to give both boards a fair shake, and they have this opinion like this is the better product. And I think that's dumb. I think that it is only safe for me to be agnostic about which board is better, because I only have experience with lift, any large amount of experience with lift. And I think that they're the best board I've found so far, but keep in mind, I only have this to compare it to. And really that's Flight's problem. Like if they want me to give their board a fair shake, they need to give me an opportunity to try it, and they haven't. Lift is definitely more accessible, at least where I live. And that's a problem for them. Now let's talk about lift. I was convinced when I first started doing the sport seriously that I would start doing it, and then, you know, multiple people on my lake would have a board, and everywhere I went, I just like, this is going to take over. This is going to take over wakeboarding. It's going to take over surfing behind a boat. It's going to take over all the freshwater, you know, power sports. And I was disappointed that after 3 years, only one other person on my lake bought one. I guess my neighbors next door are buying one next season, like they're convinced. But I really expected it to be a lot faster. And a lot of the reasons I hear is that the price, it's too expensive. Like spending 10 grand to get into this sport is too expensive. And I'll be honest, I don't fully understand that reasoning, given that a lot of the people I know that are saying, yeah, $10,000 just way too much. They've spent $150,000 to $200,000 on their wakeboard boats, and they've spent $10,000 on all their accessories to ride it already. They don't seem to have a problem making these investments, and so I think that people have a tendency to view this as a cheap beach toy And it is not that. It is not a cheap beach toy. This is a finely engineered, extremely powerful, futuristic, flying water sport. It has to be engineered to such incredible specifications, because if you were to be off on anything by a little bit, it'll be a really crappy experience. And like we're talking about the kind of engineering you need to make a glider, you need to make one of these. That's it. If you were to Google right now, I tried the cheapest eFoil Amazon sold, and then when you watch their review of it, and they may have oh, it was fun and everything, but then they get on a real board like a Lift, they're like, holy crap, now I get it. Yes, I started with what is maybe the best board brand out there, and everything I've tried thereafter has not felt as good. I've tried a Waydo, and I finally got to try a foil board, which was the heavy, that was like riding a block of concrete. It was so slow and heavy. Wow. I'm saying if that's all the money you had, you're gonna have fun on it. And I hope that it does well for you. But man, when you get onto a real board like this, wow, what these can do is amazing. So let me get back to racing a little bit. So when I go to races, my board is significantly more powerful than any flight board I've ever had a chance to ride. Keep in mind, I've not been on their sportiest, smallest, lightest, fastest board yet. So I can't make a direct comparison. But I noticed that with flight boards, at least the ones I've been on, let's continue that caveat, okay? There is a lot less control over the amount of speed I can give it, because the trigger distance is much more sensitive and much shorter. So the analogy I would make is, imagine going into your car and stepping on the gas pedal. And let's say you have two inches of travel between 0 and 100%, and then you hit the floor. That's my lift board. I have 2 inches of travel, let's say. On a flight board, it felt like I had about a ½ inch of travel. So it really does want to go 0 full, very digital. And even though it does have a range of speed. It isn't like playing Mario Kart where you just push the button down and it goes. But it is significantly harder to control, which tells me this, in a race, I do not believe you will be able to give it its fine-tuned speed control to come into a turn and feather the throttle appropriately, bringing your speed down enough where you'll stay in the turn, and then being able to jet back out of it with control. You want that carve to be nice and smooth, and it requires hundreds and hundreds of hours of practice to nail it. And I feel like I've nailed it in the sense that when I go to a race, I always finish a half-mile course under a minute, unless I fall or something, which I rarely fall. I will clear that course in under a minute, usually around 55, 54 seconds. And every other rider is well over a minute on that. And the flight riders, what I've noticed is that if they try to turn their virtual speed up too high, they don't have enough control. So they fall a lot, they pop out a lot. But then if they go down too low on their virtual gear, they have to do this. You'll watch flight boarders, they do this thing a lot where they hop. They will jump up on their front leg to get the board over the hump, right? To get the foil higher so they can ride down and then get some speed. They do that a lot, and I think that the reason that they do that a lot is just that they kind of rely on full throttling a lot, meaning they go lower virtual gear and they ride that trigger more digitally, full throttle, full squeeze. That makes it, I think, likely for a beginning rider, easier to ride. You can do the same thing with this board. You absolutely could. You could set a low virtual speed, like a 7 on the virtual speed. Full throttle it. In fact, most times when I'm teaching someone, I set that thing so low that they would be able to stand on the board without flying, full throttle. That way they don't have to think about it. So you can do that on both boards, but here's the thing. Lift gives you the ability to have a much more analog experience on the throttle, and that's going to give you significantly more control. So you're going to be able to do more with this board. You're going to get more power and be able to control that power through a race. You do not have time in a race to mess with your virtual gearing. Just, I'm letting you know that right away. If you're monkeying around with your virtual gear while you're racing a course, you will not win. You will not do well. Nope, there's no way. I start a race, I'm usually, if I'm in the first half of my battery, I start at 12 on my virtual speed. And if the race is going long, like we do 3 races in a row when we've been riding, I've been letting people try my board in between and stuff, and I'm at the last 50% of battery, I'll race at 13. And by the way, the batteries at their first 50% of the ride are much more consistent, meaning you can trust what that throttle is going to do a lot more. And also because I'm at a lower virtual gear, it's more forgiving, essentially. If I were to full throttle it and stuff, it's less likely to fly out of the water. So yeah, to do these races well, you need to be able to come around the corner at like half throttle, and then as soon as you get through that turn, be able to like slowly ramp it back up. So I need to get back up to my fastest speed on each straightaway. And so like you'll notice if you watch any of my racing videos, I am full throttling on my way to the finish line, and I generally bring my nose back down by putting my weight further and further forward or backing it off if it starts to get too high. The best times I've ever had is the ones where I'm full throttling, but I am adjusting my board by my weight shifting. And the best races I've had are the ones where you'll notice I barely am sliding back. Like I nailed my body position right out of my last turn, and boom, I come to that finish line, I'm hitting 34 miles an hour. And honestly, the rest of the riders are like, what the hell, right? And I'm like, yeah, what the hell? When people show up at those races and they've got, they don't have pro boards, I'm like, yeah, you're not really in this, you're not gonna be able to make that board do what this board can do. It would be like showing up to a NASCAR race with like a Prius. You're not ever going to actually compete against someone on a smaller board, no way. And to be completely fair, if you don't have a course in your front yard, geez, dog. If you don't have a course in your front yard, like I do, and you're racing it daily, you'll never be able to go to that race and beat me either. Like you need a fast board, a nimble board, and you need a fast wing and a hard carving wing. And you need to have a course in your front yard that you use daily. You need to be a surgeon going around those corners. And so you need it to become pure muscle memory. And it's not different than ski racing. Like alpine ski racing, same idea. Like every course is slightly different, but after you race enough of them, enough different courses, your brain can compute that so fast that you don't even notice it happening. It's almost like it's happening at the spinal cord level. It's happening without your knowledge. If you overthink a race course, you shut off those automatic decisions that you're making. And those automatic decisions for this kind of thing are faster than anything your higher brain function can do. So you need to get it down to this muscle memory level. Whereas when I go through a course, I don't even really remember it. It happens so automatically. It's like I go to a subspace and it all just happens. Like I just go to automatic land and I kind of wake up as I'm coming through the finish line. The sport of eFoiling with racing, I think, is critical to helping its popularity. Competition means it's fun for spectators to watch. Competition means that there's a purpose, a reason. Now, I love freestyling with my board, and I'm sure that if I lived on the ocean, I'd love touring on my board. But man, those races have been fun. I've met a lot of great people, and I really enjoy them. But yeah, nobody on flight board has made it to that upper echelon. And that tells me I just don't think they can do it. But I would love for flight to give me an opportunity to be proven wrong. I would love that. That would be fantastic. I don't want there to be just one brand. If Lift doesn't have competitors, they'll keep progressing with Nick because he's progressive. But at the same time, he doesn't understand flat water and freshwater riding at all. I just don't think he gets it. And that's because that's not his experience. But because he doesn't get it, it means that in a land here with 10,000 lakes and people properly educated on how awesome it is and given the experience to try it. And with races prominent so that people can see what they can actually do, because if you go to their website, it's boring looking. People going straight in slow motion is not, it doesn't look cool. It looks like a cheap beach toy. You know, it looks like stand-up paddleboarding, but a really expensive version of it. We don't need that. We need great camera angles and drone shots of people flying through a course, flying through a course. Like, show us what it can do. That's what will make most of us buy it. People are not going to spend $10,000 to get an experience of what they could get with a few $100s and a stand-up paddleboard. It's a different audience. That's not the audience. There's too much emphasis on making boards that make eFoiling easy and not enough emphasis on the high end. You're not looking at going, it's easy and it's super simple for someone with no experience doing it. Yeah, that's not your goal. If you want your, you know, son to be interested in the sport and you're gonna do it with him and stuff, you gotta talk him into it by showing how badass it is. And you gotta say it's a completely different experience than anything else you could get on the water at any price. We gotta go high end here. And then sure, you gotta you get your trainers, put them on those fiberglass boards that are good and heavy and rugged and easier to ride. And then, you know, to own one of those though, man, I don't know. I feel like I would be very, I would have liked my first year, but I wouldn't have loved it unless I'd been, I mean, I loved the sport right away, but I like got obsessively into it once I got on a pro board and started riding it the way that I'm used to riding, you know, a thruster surfboard or a wakeboard, you know, some of the more, you know, snowboard. I want to go fast and I want to carve. That's why I'm willing to spend that kind of money on it. So that's just my take on it. Also, I met the regional distributor for Lift, and I don't think he's going to be able to maximize the sport. How can I say this without being a complete jerk? I think that he lacks the tact and integrity and the prowess and the drive and I don't know. I think that you need someone in that position who's exceptionally passionate about the sport and is willing to do everything. This is so brand new. Like, we don't even know how to license these boards in Minnesota yet because we don't have a classification that fits it. And when I asked him about it, he said very little that was actually helpful he said, you know, just go to the license department, they'll figure it out. And I said, that's not true. What they'll do is say, we have no idea. So it's up to you to decide what license to buy for, how to register it. And when you get accosted when you get pulled over, I assure you that officer that does it, if he's having a bad day, you're about to have a really bad day. If you've registered as the wrong thing, it's not their fault, it's your fault. And when I questioned him in that way, and when he said, oh, don't worry, just go to the license department, they'll figure it out. No, they won't. The girl who works behind that desk has no idea what an eFoil is. He really put the onus back on it. That's the state's problem, or it's the rider's problem or whatever. And I said to him, aren't you the regional distributor? Doesn't that make it your problem? And with that, he turned and whispered something to the affiliate at Zen Water Sports, and he like waved and said goodbye to everybody. And I was clear that I'd pissed him off, and I don't care that I pissed him off. Like, what I said is true. They've left us in a place where we could have a really very expensive fine. We could have a really bad time with law enforcement. And when we go to court to argue it, we could have a really bad time there. And he's basically said, that's not my problem. In which case, he's in the wrong position. He shouldn't be responsible for distributing these boards in our region. Lift's regional distributor, the main guy in charge, he's the wrong guy. and he needs to be replaced. And with him in charge, this sport's going to keep, it's going to keep just being what it is. It's not going to progress. We need someone different. We need someone who markets differently. We need someone who thinks differently. We need someone who's going to take on the responsibility of writing the state and working with our legislature to come up with a classification. We actually need someone who is capable of bringing a brand new watercraft into the state's consciousness. And we have a giant market here. We have higher than average earnings. We have extremely high number of people who have access to eFoilable water with disposable income. And we need to show them why it's so awesome that the money you're already spending on things that give you less enjoyment could be diverted and reinvested into this, and you'll have a better time without polluting anything, without making noise pollution or even making any wake. To me, it's such a clear decision, and the people who are financially benefiting from it should be the ones doing the work, and I don't think that they're doing the work. That's my opinion. I could be completely wrong. But if there was anything that were going to push me toward a different manufacturer than Lift, short of getting on one of their boards and going, this is a much better ride, probably that. It's probably the regional distributor. Yep, I'm totally a guy that'll buy a board every year. If that's not an ideal customer, then I don't know what is. And if Lift's response to an ideal customer is to say, your questions anger me, I'll ignore them. Well, I guess put it like this. I don't need the regional distributor, but the regional distributor needs people like me. They need ideal customers. So with that, I think I'm going to close the season out. I guess let me record a little B-roll here.